Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Partha Sarit Sinha, postgraduate training in the Department of Physiology, Burdwan Medical College and Hospital. Today, I'm presenting to you about the structure and filtration of the kidney, that is the renal system. As we all know, the kidney is the main excretory organ of the body. It excretes various metabolic wastes of the body, like urea, creatinine, uric acid, but it also excretes some other foreign compounds and drug metabolites. Apart from the excretory part, the kidney also serves some other functions, like it maintains water balance and osmolarity of the body fluids, it helps to maintain the electrolyte balance, it maintains the pH of the acid-base balance of the body, and through the renin-angiotensin system maintains blood pressure. There are some secretory function of the kidney, like it secretes renin and erythropoietin, the body which serves various functions of the body. Now coming to the basic structure of the kidney. As you can see here, it is an outer cortex and the inner medulla. The cortex is the outer part of the kidney, beneath which the medulla in the form of some pyramids is situated. The pyramids have the larger base towards the medulla, and the tip of the pyramids, which are called the papilla, is here in the deeper part of the kidney. The tip of the papilla joins to form the minor calyx, then the major calyx, and finally the urine drains into the ureter or bladder. There are some extension of the cortical tissue in between the pyramids, which is called the renal columns of Butting. Now, the functional and structural unit of kidney is called the nephron. It consists of two parts mainly. The first, the glomerular portion and the tubular portion. The glomerular portion has two parts. There is a Bowman's capsule, which is the cup-shaped structure. It is a part of the tubule, and which encloses the glomerular capillary tract. The tubular portion we will be discussing later. Now, depending on the position of the nephrons, we can divide the nephrons into two types of nephrons. That is a corticomedullary nephron, which is present at the corticomedullary junction, and the nephrons which are situated in the cortex are called the cortical nephrons. There are certain differences between them. The corticomedullary nephrons have long loops of Henle, which extend up to the tip of papilla, and the loops of Henle are divided distinctively into thin and thick segments in the ascending loops. Whereas in the cortical nephron, the loops of Henle are short and the ascending loop is throughout thick. Also, the afferent arteriole diameter in the corticomedullary nephrons are equal to the efferent arteriole, but efferent arterioles are narrower in the efferent arteriole in the cortical nephrons. Now here is the diagram of the simplified diagram of the nephron. As you can see, the nephron starts in the glomerular capillary with the Bowman's capsule enclosing it. There are two efferent and efferent arterioles coming in and going out of that. The tubular portion consists in the proximal convoluted tubule, that is the convolutions in the tubule, the proximal convoluted tubule which continues into the loop of Henle. It is a descending loop and it is the ascending loop of the Henle. It continues into another convoluted portion which is called the distal convoluted tubule, and the distal convoluted tubule connects to the collecting duct, like the cortical collecting duct, this long portion, by the connecting tubule. Cortical collecting duct receives tubular portions of the various other nephrons also like this. So this is a simplified diagram of the kidney. Now in this diagram, in the left side shows the glomerular portion of the kidney, like the efferent arteriole coming out of the kidney and the efferent arteriole coming into the kidney. The glomerular portion, the capillary tuft inside is enclosed by Bowman's capsule, and Bowman's capsule continues in the proximal collimated tubule. This diagram shows the difference between the cortical nephrons and the corticomedullary nephrons. The corticomedullary nephron, as I have already said, has long loops of Henle surrounded by these capillaries. We will come that later, and which extend to the tip of the papilla. But the cortical nephrons have long, short loops of Henle. So there are some things we have to know. There are mesenchymal cells. These are actually the supporting tissues of the kidney. There are two kinds of mesenchymal cells. It is the intraglomerular, which is surrounding the glomeruli, and the extraglomerular portions. The intraglomerular portions are contractile in nature, so they help to regulate the blood flow. And extraglomerular mesenchymal cells, which are also called the Lassus cells, helps to secrete the erythropoietin. It is a part of the juxtaglomerular apparatus. Now the tubular portion, the first portion is called the proximal collimated tubule, as we have already seen. It is differentiated into two parts: proximal convoluted tubule, that is segment 1 and 2, which continues into the proximal straight tubule, which is called a pars recta, which is segment 3. It continues into the loop of Henle, which is a U-shaped structure continuing of descending and ascending, as we have already seen. The distal tubule has a distal convoluted part and a late distal tubule, which continues into the cortical collecting duct. Now the collecting duct, it has two types of cells: the P or the principal cells, and I or the intercardiac cells. Their difference in them is the metabolic activity in them. The P cells are less metabolic activity than the I cells. And I cells are also contains two types of cells: the alpha and beta cells. They help to regulate the acid-base balance. Now in this diagram, there are the histology portion is shown between the different parts of the nephron. The proximal tubule have cuboidal epithelium with brush bud, and it has abundant mitochondria, so it is metabolically active and it helps in secretion and reabsorption. But the descending thin ring has flat type of epithelium with short microvilli, and it helps in passive diffusion. But the thick ascending ring, it is impermeable to water. It is formed of cuboidal epithelium with no brush border. It is only concerned in the reabsorption of solutes. The cortical collecting duct, as we see, it consists of P and I cells. The cells are tall cuboidal with no brush border and helps to absorb and secrete. The absorption and secretion part. Now coming to the blood supply. The blood supply of the kidney are mainly by the renal artery, and on entering the renal kidney, the renal artery divides into segmental arteries, which further divide into interlobar branches, which divides into arcuate arteries. Now, the arcuate arteries continues dividing into the interlobular arteries, which are called the cortical radial arteries. These branches to the afferent arterioles, which breaks into the capillary network, which is called the glomerular capillary tract, as we have already seen. Now, after the glomerular capillary tract, the afferent arteriole that comes out divides into two parts. One is the peritubular capillaries, and another is the vasa recta. Peritubular capillaries are mainly in case of the cortical nephrons, which surround the tubules, but the vasa recta are long capillary network which surrounds the long loop of Henle in the corticomedullary nephrons and from the hairpin loop structures. They unite to from the cortical radial veins to interlobar veins and drain into the renal veins. Now coming to the filtration part. The filtration barrier of the kidney consists of three layers. It is the capillary endothelium, the basement membrane, and epithelial cell layer. The capillary endothelium have numerous fenestrae in the cytoplasm. Approximately the pore size is 7 to 90 nanometer. The basement membrane is distinctly composed of three layers. The internal laminar area is interna, the middle lamina densa, and laminar area externa, that is the external area. And third part is the epithelial cell of the visual layer of the Bowman's capsule. There are numerous food processors or pedicles, and these cells are called the podocytes. The food processors are built with the slit diaphragm, and the epithelial cells have distinctive gaps between, which called a filtration slit. Now the podocytes or the cells interdigitate extensively and the three parts, the capillary endothelium, basement membrane, and the epithelial cell layer forms the filtration barrier of the kidney. Now here you can see a historical section of the glomerulus along with the juxtaglomerular apparatus. As you can see, the podocytes and pedicles here, the pores and the pedicles of the conical parts, which is a visceral layer in the Bowman's capsule. And these violet color cells are the intraglomerular mesangial cells, and these cells, which are the extraglomerular mesangial cells, forms part of the juxtaglomerular apparatus, which are also from the macular densa and the juxtaglomerular cells, which is near to the afferent artery. We'll be coming back to that later. The Bowman's capsule continues in the proximal tubule and includes the glomerular capillary network. Now the filtration barrier, or the filtration slit rather, it is formed of different types of proteins like the nephrin, NEPH1 and potosin, and also there are proteins associated with that like alpha-actinin 4 and CT2AP. Because deficiency of some of these proteins like nephrins may form the congenital nephrotic syndrome. So these are important in the modern science. Now we have seen the filtration membrane. So the filtration of the particles depends on the following factors. First is the pore size. The glomerular capillary has pore size of 8 nanometer, while the podocyte filtration slits, the gaps between the podocytes, are 25 nanometer. The middle layer, that is the lamina densa, it does not allow molecules having weight more than 69 kilodalton to pass, and also the cellular components of the plant, that is RBC, WBC, cannot pass through the membrane. Filtration also depends on the particle size. The particle size less than 4 nanometer are freely filtered, while the particles more than 8 nanometer are not filtered. But between these, the filtration is inversely proportional to the diameter. Not only particle size, but also the filtration membrane has a negative charge. The internal and external layer, that is laminar internal and external, are negatively charged because of presence of the heparan sulfate proteoglycans rich in sialic acid. So they allow cations and neutral particles to pass more freely than the anions. In this diagram, you can see the neutral dextral filtration is the blue line. When it is in the polyanionic form, the filtration decreases because it is does not allow the anions to pass. But when it is in the polycationic form, the filtration is increased. Now, the filtration depends on the shape of the molecule. The compact molecule, like the hemoglobin, which is a round and cylindrical structure, pass more freely than albumin. And I have seen in the filtration membrane there are some proteins and also the food processors. I have seen the mutation in the nephrin gene causes congenital nephrotic syndrome. Also, the effacement of the food processes allows more proteins to pass, causing albuminuria in the nephrotic syndrome. Now, coming to the juxtaglomerular apparatus, as we have already seen in the histological section, it is composed of three types of cells: the macular dense cells, which is modification that tightly packed cuboidal cells of the distal convoluted tubule that comes into close contact with the glomerulus. Second is the extraglomerular mesangial cells, which is called the Lassus cells. And third is the JG cells, or juxtaglomerular or granular cells, which is located in the walls of the adjacent afferent arterioles. The macular dense cells are the sodium and chloride sensors and participate in the tubular glomerular feedback. The extraglomerular cells, that is the Lassus cells, may be included in the erythropoietin secretion, and juxtaglomerular or the granular cells secretes renin and forms the renin-angiotensin system, part of the renin-angiotensin RAS system. It is a simplified diagram of the glomerulus and the macular dense and the renal corpus. Now, the urine formation involves three processes. First is the glomerular filtration, which we will be discussing today. Others are tubular reabsorption and tubular secretion. We will be discussing that later in other presentations. Now, coming to the glomerular filtration rate. What is this? It is the volume of fluid filtered from the renal glomerulus capillaries into the Bowman's capsule per unit time. It is an important measurement in the evolution of kidney function. And GA4 of a normal human being is about 125 ml plasma per minute. It forms the ultrafiltrate. It is a model for transcapillary ultrafiltration. What is the ultrafiltrate? It is a plasma water which contains solutes and crystalloids, but not cellular components or colloids, and it is separated from the blood by a semipermeable membrane. Now, the ultrafiltrate composition is shown here, where we have seen it is devoid of the cellular components and colloids. So, it contains the electrolyte, metabolites, metabolic wastes, and some lower weight proteins and peptides. Now, the ultrafiltration or the glomerular filtration is governed by the two processes, major factors rather. First is the filtration coefficient, and second is the pressure gradient or the Stalling forces. Now, first coming to the Stalling forces. What is the Stalling forces? Stalling forces are involved in the filtration of the glomerulus. Now, the forces that helps in the filtration are the glomerular capillary hydrostatic pressure and the Bowman's capsule oncotic pressure. And the forces that opposes the filtration are the Bowman's capsule hydrostatic pressure and the glomerular space oncotic pressure. So this equation comes like this. There are two things which I have not said. First is the reflection coefficient, which is considered as 1 for the protein in the glomerular system, and second is the filtration coefficient, which we will be discussing later. Now, what are the values for the filtration? It is actually the net filtration pressure, because the filtration pressure changes around the glomeruli. The net filtration pressure is coming to be 10 because the glomerular hydrostatic pressure is 60, Bowman's capsular pressure is 18, and glomerular oncotic pressure is 32. We have not taken into account the Bowman's capsule oncotic pressure, because Bowman's capsule oncotic pressure is too low and is negligible, because no proteins are filtered into the Bowman's space. Very little amount of protein is filtered into the Bowman's space. So the oncotic pressure can be neglected, but in certain situations which increases the permeability of the filtration barrier, the proteins are leaked into the Bowman space, so then the Bowman space oncotic pressure increases. But in normal situation, it is negligible. So only the three forces are taken into account in this equation. Now I've changed it is a net filtration pressure, because the filtration pressure changes from the afferent end towards the efferent end. The pressure actually that is changing here is the pi GC or the oncotic pressure in the glomerular capillary, because as the filtration continues, the oncotic pressure rises from the efferent to the efferent side. And here another thing I have to say, the filtration near the efferent side, actually the filtration ceases to be nil, and it is actually the net filtration pressure comes to be 0, and this portion is called the filtration equilibrium. The first diagram is the other capillary network elsewhere in the body, where actually the hydrostatic pressure is changing. Hydrostatic pressure of the capillaries are changing from the arterial side to the venous side. But here you have seen that the glomerular capillary oncotic pressure is changing, and all other pressures are normal. The shaded area is the net filtration pressure. So the net filtration pressure decreases from the efferent to the efferent side. But in the third diagram, when the renal blood flow is increased, this equilibrium point, that is where the net filtration pressure is low, shifts to the efferent end, because the oncotic pressure in the glomerulus rises less rapidly. So the equilibrium pressure shifts to the equilibrium, this zero filtration equilibrium point shifts to the efferent end. So the filtration actually increases when the renal blood flow is increased. Now there are some terms which are related to the glomerular filtration which you have to know. First is the glomerular filtration rate, that is, which you have already seen, that is the abridged form or the short form of the previous equation. The GFR is the filtration coefficient into the effective filtration pressure. Now, what is this filtration coefficient? It is the glomerular filtration rate, the GFR, in both kidneys per millimeter of mercury. The normal value is taken to be 12.5 milliliter per minute per mercury per millimeter Hu. It is directly proportional to the surface area of the filtering membrane, hydrostatic hydraulic conductivity. Second is the effective filtration pressure. We have already seen it is coming to the 10 millimeter of mercury. The formula has already been shown. It is determined the balance of the Stirling forces. Okay. The third thing we have to know, it is a filtration fraction. Filtration fraction is actually by formula we can say the GFR by renal plasma flow, renal blood flow. What percentage of the renal plasma flow is filtered? Amount of fluid that filters to the Bowman's capsule per minute. Normal value is 125 ml per minute, that is the GFR by renal plasma flow is 600 ml per minute. That comes to 0.2 or 20%. Now, summing up, what is the factors affecting GFR? First is the renal plasma flow, as we have already discussed, and all the Stirling forces, the capillary hydrostatic pressure, capsular hydrostatic pressure, oncotic pressure, the permeability of a capillary, effective filtration surface area, and also the size, shape, and electric charge of the macromolecules. Because size, shape, and electrical charge of the macromolecules, as we have seen, the filtration depends on them. Now coming to the renal clearance part. Now clearance of the substance, renal clearance of the substance can be defined as a volume of plasma from which that substance is completely removed or cleared per unit time. The formula is coming to be like this: Ux into V dot by Ps. Now, what is the Ux into V dot by Ps? Ux is the concentration of the X substance X in the urine. V dot is the urine flow rate, and Ps is the plasma concentration of the substance. This is the actual equation we have to learn, but something called the Cockcroft-Gault formula, which depends on the age and weight of the person. Roughly, the clearance can be also formulated by this, but these are not relevant clinically. It is rough estimation. Now, how the equation is coming, derivation of the equation, we know that the mass of substance excreted by unit time should be equal to the mass of X removed from plasma per unit time. Now, breaking these into parts, mass of substance excreted per unit time, this coming to mass of X in urine per unit volume, that is the urine concentration of the substance, the urine volume into the urine volume per time, that is the urine flow rate, the plasma concentration of X, Px, and second part is the volume of plasma cleared of X per time, that is the Cx actually. So the formula coming is Px into Cx equals to Ux into V, and the formula comes like this. Now, how the GFR or glomerular filtration rate is measured? We measure clearance of the substances by like inulin and creatinine. But we can some modern imaging techniques like dynamic contrast enhanced computer tomography or DC magnetic resonance imaging are in our days used. Now, measurement of GFR. We have seen that we measure GFR as clearance by the tool clearance. Now, what are the substances? What are the properties of the substances that need to be taken into account? The substance should meet the following criteria. It should achieve a stable plasma concentration. It should be freely filtered. It is not reabsorbed, secreted, metabolized, or produced in the kidney, and it does not alter the GFR. Now, one such substance is inulin. Its rate of excretion is directly proportional to the rate of filtration. The reason it is taken to be the standard tool to measure GFR is that it is freely filterable, not reabsorbed or secreted, not synthesized, destroyed. It is non-toxic, and it is the measured. It is measurable by simple analysis. So it serves almost all the factors in the as an ideal tool to measure GFR. It is a high standard actually, highly accurate. The formula is the same. Ux, we substitute X by inulin, and the formula comes to this. Others like iothalamate can be also used, and identical organ compound or EDT or vitamin B12, but inulin is taken to be standard. But it is not helpful in clinical practice as such, because the process is invasive. It is injected IV, and the bladder is usually catheterized, so it's inconvenient. So another tool, that is the creatinine, we use because it is endogenous in the body. It is produced endogenously in the body. It is easily measurable and freely filtered by the glomerulus. But here is the problem that creatinine clearance overestimates the GFR by almost 10 to 20% because it is secreted by the peritubular capillaries. But the actual value comes to be almost like the GFR because the calorimetry method which uses this also measures non-specific chromosomes in the plasma. So the error and the actual reading nullifies each other. Now there are some things called the clearance ratio. Clearance ratio is the actually the clearance of the substance which can be compared with the standard of the clearance of the inulin. If it is 1, clearance ratio is actually Cs by C inulin. If it is 1 it is like in urine, a glomerular marker. If it is less than 1, either substance is not filtered or it is filtered and subsequently reabsorbed, like albumin, all these ions, phosphate, urea. And if it is greater than 1, it is filtered and secreted, like organic acid and bases. Okay. Now we have seen that the creatinine is used conveniently to measure the GFR, and the graph is showing the relationship between GFR and plasma creatinine. And it is more convenient to use than imaging. It is measured by the collecting urine for 24 hours to determine the amount of creatinine that was removed from the blood over a given time interval, and substituting the values in the equation, that is clearance equal to US into V dot by Px. We are getting this value 125 ml per minute, that is actual GFR. 60 ml. This value is actually taking into account the the plasma creatinine of 0.01 mg per ml in 1 hour with 60 ml of urine produced, and with a creatinine concentration of 1.25 milligram per ml. The substitution values we get the 125 ml per minute. There are some problems with creatinine, like muscle mass variation or meat ingestion, protein ingestion, which also we can use the modern imaging techniques. Now coming to the renal blood flow. Kidneys are one of the most vascular organs of the body. There is 20% of the cardiac output, like about 1.2 liter per minute, flows through the kidney. The Fick's principle, renal blood flow is measured by the Fick's principle. It uses a Fick's principle, that is the consequence of conservation of mass. Okay. This states that the input in the input in the renal artery amounts to the output through the renal vein or through the ureter. The concentration in the renal artery into renal plasma flow equal to concentration in the vein into renal plasma flow plus the ureter concentration, the urine concentration into renal flow rate. Now the renal blood flow is measured by the electromagnetic flow meter. It is measured by the considering this equation, the amount of given substance taken up by kidney per unit time divided by the arteriovariance difference of the substance across the organ. It can also be measured by this formula: the renal blood flow equals to renal plasma flow divided by 1 minus hematocrit. As you have already seen, it also affects the GFR. The more the renal plasma flow, GFR is increased because pyruvate or the oncotic pressure in the capillaries rises less rapidly. The renal plasma flow is measured by the substance known as the para-aminohippurate. Now this substance is filtered and vigorously secreted, so that is completely cleared from all the plasma flow. It is actually the concentration of it almost zero in the renal vein. It is completely cleared, and in at low plasma pH levels, it approximates the renal plasma flow. Now, what we are deriving from this renal plasma effective renal plasma flow derivation of the formula by the pH clearance, it is the effective RPF. The effective renal plasma flow equals to the pH clearance CPH by the extraction ratio for pH, EPH. The derivation of the equations follows the same principle as the Fick's principle: IPF into PPH and urine and all the vein factors. The Fick's principle, because in steady state amount of pH entering kidney and amount of pH leaving the kidney in time is same as the Fick's principle, and dividing the numerator and denominator pH, we get this equation: effective RPF equals to clearance of the pH by extraction ratio of the pH. Now we are coming to the auto-regulation by this. What is the auto-regulation? The kidney maintains a constant flow despite changes in pressure between the 80-180 millimeter of mercury. It is auto-regulation. It is called the auto-regulation by the kidney. Because of the auto-regulation, the filtration fraction, that is a GFR by RPF, also remains relatively constant in this pressure range between 80 to 180. Now, what are the methods or by which the auto-regulation is occurs in the kidney? The most important methods are myogenic mechanism and the tumoroglomerular feedback. Also, there are some other mechanisms also, that neural, hormonal, or by some vasoactive substances, vasodilators or vasoconstrictors. Now coming to the mechanism of myogenic autoregulation, the first mechanism, when the arterial blood pressure increases, that causes the blood pressure in the afferent arteriole to also increase. This causes the arterial wall stretching, and some myogenic stretch receptors in the wall responds to this and gets activated, and this causes the opening of some voltage gated calcium channels, which increases the calcium influx into the arteries, and this leads to vasoconstriction. And this vasoconstriction of the arterioles minimize the changes in the glomerular filtration rate. In this diagram, we can see that afferent arteriole when it constricts, or the efferent arteriole when it dilates, this decreases the GFR. But when the efferent arteriole constricts, or the afferent arteriole dilates, the GFR is increased. Now coming to the second mechanism, that is the tubular-glomerular feedback. It is a feedback mechanism that links sodium and chloride concentration at the macular tensor. The macular tensor, I have always said that the macular tensor senses sodium and chloride. So the mechanism of the tubular-glomerular feedback related to this. It helps in auto-regulation of the kidney. It has two components, the afferent arteriolar feedback and efferent arteriolar feedback. That will be cleared in the this diagram. When the arterial blood pressure decreases, the GFR also decreases, glomerular filtration pressure decreases. That causes sodium water retention by the proximal convoluted tubule. So the sodium delivery at the macular tensor is decreased. Actually, the sodium and chloride both macular tensor senses both the sodium and chloride. This leads to the afferent arteriole and afferent arteriolar changes. In the afferent arteriole, the adenosine and ATP are vasodilators that causes the afferent arteriolar resistance to decrease. While in the efferent arteriole, the renin increases, which causes the secretion of the angiotensin, which is a powerful vasoconstrictor that increases the afferent arteriolar resistance. And this led to the autoregulation. As I have said that the macular tensor senses sodium chloride, actually the chloride concentration is just more than the sodium. And also the ATP and adenosine. I have already said that prostaglandin modulates the pathways. The renin-angiotensin is a vast portion. Here we will just discuss the basic things about that. When the renal blood flow decreases or the sodium is decreased in the blood, the juxtaglomerular apparatus of the kidneys is activated. This causes the secretion of renin from the juxtaglomerular cells. The renin actually converts the angiotensin gene into angiotensin 1, which is then converted into angiotensin 2, the angiotensin converting enzyme, which is a powerful vasoconstrictor. The angiotensin 2 also secretes aldosterone from the axillary cortex, and aldosterone is the main regulator of sodium retention. Third mechanism is the neural regulation, that is the sympathetic nerve mainly. The sympathetic nerve supplies both the afferent and efferent arteriole, and the receptors are alpha 1 adrenoreceptors. They cause vasoconstriction mainly in the afferent arteriole more than the efferent arteriole. These sympathetic nerve are stimulated when the extracellular fluid volume is low. It helps to decrease the effort to conserve the extracellular fluid volume, or in some stressful situations like ischemia, defense. Also, I have to say that the filtration fraction increases at moderate levels of sympathetic stimulation, but at higher levels, the GFR decrease is almost similar to the renal plasma flow decrease. So the filtration fraction actually decreases at higher stimulation of the sympathetic nerve. The parasympathetic nerve are secretes acetylcholine, which causes the release of NO from the endothelial cells, and which is a vasodilator. There are some factors I have already discussed some, like in the vasoconstrictor, sympathetic nerve, the angiotensin II, and the endothelin, and vasodilators are prostaglandins, E1, E2, and PGI2, nitric oxide, bradykinin, and also alkyl natriuretic peptides, and which are vasodilators actually. There are some physiological conditions that alter the GFR, like pregnancy, it increases, food intake it increases, by age, as there is loss of nephrons with age, the GFR decreases, and also in posture, sleep, the posture, when the apparatus of constriction, when in the sympathetic stimulation, the GFR decreases. Lastly, some diseases are there which alters the GFR, like GFR is decreased in renal disease, diabetes mellitus, urinary tract obstruction, which increases the Bowman's capsular hydrostatic pressure. Also, the renal blood flow is decreased. When the renal blood flow is decreased, GFR is decreased. Plasma proteins is increased, the GFR is decreased. And the arterial pressure decreases, the decrease by angiotensin II or sympathetic activity also affects the GFR. So this is about the gist of the filtration and the basic structure of the kidney. Thank you all for listening to my presentation. Thank you.